Chapter 1611. Kaiangyu Dongfang was very confident in securing the final victory. The Spirit Pagoda may not have been able to compete with the past Shrek Academy, but now, even with Long Ye still around, the outcome of this clash was a foregone conclusion. Despite this, everyone from Shrek Academy was still very calm, as if they were completely unfazed. 3, 2, 1, begin. Two more figures rose up into the air in unison. For the fifth match, the Spirit Pagoda representative was a man in his 50s or 60s with a powerful aura and a pair of hands that were at least twice the size of an average person of his stature. As for the representative for Shrek Academy, it was none other than Shu Lizzie, who was only a soul Douluo. Shu Lizzie wore a faint smile on his chubby face, looking completely harmless. Yali couldn't help but ask with a concerned expression, "Is this really a good idea?" Tang Wolin smiled and replied, "Lizzie works just as hard as I do, and he's constantly been improving these past few years, so don't underestimate him. He's a member of our Shrek 7 monsters, and he earned that status through his own power. On top of that, he's received extensive guidance from Elder Long, so you can count on him." Yali nodded in response. After rising up into the air, a serious look had appeared on Shu Lizzie's face, but due to his rotund frame, his serious expression didn't hold as much gravity as it should. He had actually only just flown out of Shrek Academy, and he seemed to be rather nervous. Was he really nervous? Yes, he was. This clash against the Spirit Pagoda was extremely important for Shrek Academy. Even if it weren't enrollment day, this was a matter of revenge. If they couldn't beat the Spirit Pagoda, then Shrek Academy's reputation would be severely damaged. The weight of his friends' trust and the glory of Shrek Academy was truly making him very nervous. He could still clearly recall the words of encouragement from New Zealand, and that had instilled him with great self-belief. As the two of them were rising up into the air, the elderly man from the Spirit Pagoda had already been informed by someone from the Spirit Pagoda that this little fatty was one of Shrek's 7 monsters, but he seemed to be a food system soul master. Was he here just to make up the numbers? He had thought that there was a very good chance that Tang Wolin could concede this match as a tactical move, but both of them had already exceeded 300 meters in altitude, and Tang Wolin still displayed no intention of conceding the match. Could it be that he was expecting a food system soul master to win this match? Was he delusional? "Please enlighten me," Shu Lizzie said in a very polite manner. The elderly man's brows furrowed slightly, and a cold look flashed through his eyes. The fact that a food system soul master dared to challenge him was a clear insult in his eyes, and he immediately seized the initiative to unleash the first attack. A pair of white boxing gloves suddenly appeared over his fists, fusing as one with his arms and covering his entire forearm. These boxing gloves were his martial soul. That's Fist Emperor Douluo. All titled Douluos had their own unique stories, and Domo was no exception. No one even remembered what his real name was. Everyone simply referred to him by his nickname of Domo. Ever since his youth, he had been renowned for his straightforward fighting style and his love for direct clashes against his opponents. All of his powers were focused on his fists, and his hands were far larger than those of a normal person, giving him a distinct advantage after he had awakened his martial soul. He was already a rank 96 hyper Douluo, and in his eyes, Shu Lizzie couldn't even be considered to be an opponent. His fury was even further exacerbated after witnessing Shu Lizzie release a total of only 8 soul rings. All of the combatants from both sides thus far had been titled Douluo, so why was a soul Douluo being sent into battle now? Was Shrek Academy really running out of good representatives? There was an insurmountable gap in their cultivation ranks, and on top of that, this fatty was a food system soul master. Kaiangyu Dongfang couldn't help but smile at the sight of Shu Lizzie's 8 soul rings. Shrek Academy really had fallen from grace. They were clearly indirectly conceding this match. Regardless of how one looked at this, there was no chance that Shu Lizzie could secure victory here. Fist Emperor Domo's direct fighting style made him quite a troublesome opponent, even for Kaiangyu Dongfang. His fists were simply too powerful and too quick, and countless opponents had been beaten to pulps by those devastating fists of his. The students and parents looking from down below were also quite surprised. They didn't know much about the world of high-grade soul masters, but even they could tell the difference between titled Douluos and soul Douluos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Am I seeing this right? Why does he only have 8 soul rings? Even though the final soul ring was a red one, there were only 8 in total. Did he really stand a chance against a titled Douluo? I don't know much about soul masters, but I've heard that a difference of a major cultivation rank is a huge disparity. I don't think it'll be easy for that fatty to win. Why is Shrek Academy sending him out for this match? Could it be that they've run out of titled Douluo? Who knows? Maybe it's a plan. After all, they haven't conceded, and I'm sure they wouldn't do this for no reason. You're right. Let's wait and see. Shu Lizzie was naturally unaware of what was being said about him. At this moment, his attention was focused entirely on his opponent in this match. His opponent's aura was far more powerful than his, and Tang Wolin had told him that his opponent was very likely to be a hyper Douluo. In the face of such an opponent, he wouldn't stand any chance by fighting fire with fire. The only way for him to secure a miraculous victory was to make use of the elements of spontaneity and surprise. In the blink of an eye, Domo was already within 100 meters of Shu Lizzie, and he launched his right fist through the air. A resounding boom immediately rang out, and a burst of golden light that was imbued with extremely fearsome pressure reached Shu Lizzie in a flash. Shu Lizzie hovered in midair with a serious expression, and he drew a circle in midair with his left hand on the bottom and his right hand on top. Gentle white light began to revolve around his hands, and as the circle was drawn, the surrounding light began to refract slightly. Chapter 1612. Shu Lizzie twisted around slightly before rushing a few meters away to the side while redirecting Domo's attack away, causing it to brush past him. This was the Tang sect technique, controlling crane capturing dragon. Domo faltered slightly upon seeing this, clearly not expecting Shu Lizzie to employ such a method of resistance. He seemed to have achieved this through pure soul power and hadn't even used any soul skills. How was that even possible? Having diverted that punch away, Shu Lizzie's nerves were settled significantly, and he raised a hand to produce a bloodthirsty red bean bun, which he immediately stuffed into his own mouth, following which a peculiar look appeared on his face. He was so nervous that he had forgotten to chew and swallow the stuffed bun whole. His blood began to boil as the bloodthirsty red bean bun instantly took effect, and at the same time, specks of light appeared all over his body as he summoned his suit of dark purple battle armor. That's right, his battle armor had become purple, and it was such a dark shade of purple that it seemed to be able to devour all light. Faint rainbow radiance was surging over the surface of his suit of battle armor, but it was clearly incomplete, missing a helmet and the entire lower body section, which meant that it was currently only comprised of pauldrons, gauntlets, and a breastplate. However, Domo was quite stunned by the sight of that rainbow light. Was this 4-word battle armor? A soul Douluo possessed pieces of 4-word battle armor? How was this possible? 4-word battle armor was enormously taxing to its wearer as the heavenly refined metal would automatically draw upon the soul master's energy in an uncontrollable process. As such, it was widely accepted that only powerful beings of the hyper Douluo level or above would be able to handle a full suit of 4-word battle armor master. This suit of 4-word battle armor wasn't complete. Many pieces had already been adorned. Surely Shu Lizzie would have to at least be a titled Douluo to be able to withstand the physical strain. He was just a soul Douluo, and food system soul Douluo. At that, however, Domo only faltered for a split second before immediately rushing forward, and his right fist abruptly expanded to 3 times its original size as it was swung toward Shu Lizzie like a giant hammer. Releasing his battle armor from the get-go was already a concession of inferiority from Shu Lizzie, and as a hyper Douluo, Domo wasn't really even considering Shu Lizzie to be a serious opponent. After releasing his 4-word battle armor, Shu Lizzie's essence, energy, and spirit instantly spiked drastically, and he chanted, "Don't judge a bun by its folds." Light flashed in his 2 hands, and a pair of stuffed buns appeared. The bun in his right hand was held directly toward Domo, while the bun in his left hand was quickly stuffed into his mouth. After swallowing the stuffed bun, his entire body became more light and agile, and he quickly retreated. The stuffed bun flying toward Domo was of a purplish black color, and in the face of an attack, Domo only knew one way to respond: counterattack. Boom! A violent explosion erupted, and Domo's devastating fist was stopped cold in its tracks for a moment. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Shu Lizzie had already retreated by over 100 meters. What the hell was this thing? An exploding bun? Domo faltered slightly upon seeing this. The stuffed bun really did pack considerable explosive power, but it was only enough to stop him for a moment. What an interesting little fatty. He was a food system soul master, yet he was creating bombs. As soon as this thought sprang into his mind, he caught sight of Shu Lizzie stuffing another bun into his own mouth. This was a transparent bun, and following consumption, a layer of translucent light instantly appeared over Shu Lizzie's body. Domo didn't even know whether he should be amused or angry at this point. Was his opponent challenging him to a battle of attrition? Even so, there was still no chance that he would lose. Domo shot forth like lightning, and on this occasion, he was planning to strike down Shu Lizzie once and for all. His third soul ring lit up as he thrust his fists forward, and countless fist projections were instantly unleashed, encompassing a massive area and affording Shu Lizzie no avenue for evasion. Every single fist projection was filled with terrifying strength and extremely compressed soul power, and it was like a storm of soul missiles. This was Domo's third soul skill, rocket punches. The names Douluo assigned to his soul skills were all very simple. They were generally all named something something punch, and this third soul skill had been named as such for its explosive power. His naming convention reflected his straightforward personality. In the face of the rocket punches, Douluo seemed to have flown into a panic, retreating as quickly as he could, but there was no way he could outrun a hyper Douluo charging at him at full speed. In the end, he was caught within the massive wall of fist projections. However, he suddenly made a surprising gesture. He took a deep breath, and purplish black light erupted from his body, making it look as if he were preparing to withstand this attack with his battle armor. Douluo harumphed coldly upon seeing this. An incomplete suit of 4-word battle armor was inferior even to a complete suit of 3-word battle armor, as it didn't possess a domain. Even if its defensive prowess were extremely stellar, there was no way that Douluo would be able to withstand a flurry of such powerful attacks. Was Douluo really planning to withstand the attack head-on? The answer was quickly revealed. All of a sudden, he thrust his hands through the air, releasing a vast expanse of palm projections that hurtled directly toward Douluo's rocket punches. Was he going to fight fire with fire? All of the people down below were stunned to see this. A food system soul Douluo was engaging in a direct clash with a hyper Douluo. Did he have a death wish? However, as the clash took place, an incredible turn of events unfolded. A string of loud slaps rang out, and through the use of his purple demon eyes, Tang Wuling could see that Douluo had also unleashed his purple demon eyes, allowing him to track the trajectories of all of Douluo's punches. Regardless of how fast his rocket punches were, they were comprised of individual punches, and what Douluo had to do was match his opponent's speed. The first palm struck the first oncoming punch with unerring accuracy, and the latter was diverted off to the side. The second palm followed, then the third palm. Douluo was like a thousand-hand Buddha, thrusting his palms forward over and over again like lightning to dispel the rocket punches one after another. Douluo was incredibly stunned to see this. Douluo's hands were extremely strong and firm, and they seemed to be protected by a special type of energy, allowing him to divert all of the oncoming rocket punches away. How could a soul Douluo possess such immense strength and abundant soul power? Even 4-word battle armor shouldn't have enhanced him by this much. The string of clashes lasted for around 7 to 8 seconds, and at its conclusion, the two combatants were only separated by several meters. Right at this moment, Douluo suddenly pounced forward, and he circled his arms in front of himself, releasing a burst of enormous suction force directly toward Douluo. Chapter 1613. Douluo was already feeling very frustrated to have been stalled by a soul Douluo for this long. There were so many media journalists down below, and he was already a seasoned hyper Douluo. Allowing this to drag on any longer would be far too embarrassing for him. Thus, in the face of Douluo's forward charge, he didn't take any evasive measures, as doing so would only exacerbate his humiliation. He lowered his center of gravity and rammed his shoulder directly toward Douluo's chest. At the same time, his soul power quickly flowed into his fists, and as soon as the clash took place, he would unleash a torrential storm of ferocious attacks to crush this little fatso. The suction power being released by Douluo was extremely powerful, and Douluo was also rushing toward him, so the two almost instantly crashed into one another. As expected, Douluo's shoulder crashed heavily into Douluo's chest, and in that instant, he could even sense Douluo's flabby flesh tremor from the force of the impact. However, through these tremors, Douluo was able to nullify most of the impact. Furthermore, his 4-word battle armor's defensive prowess was definitely extremely formidable. Even Douluo was only a 3-word battle armor master, and he had always dreamed of owning a suit of 4-word battle armor, so he was actually very envious toward Douluo. In their generation, it was unheard of for someone to own pieces of 4-word battle armor at such a young age. This clash allowed him to get a better sense of just how resolute Douluo's 4-word battle armor was, and he instantly understood that a major factor behind Douluo's ability to match his strength was his 4-word battle armor. All of these thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant, but in the next instant, he immediately realized that something was wrong. Not only had Douluo not been sent flying by his shoulder charge, the suction force that Douluo was releasing had caused them to adhere tightly to one another. In fact, Douluo was even struck by the feeling that something had grabbed onto his shoulder. As he looked down, he was stunned to discover that Douluo's breastplate had caved in, and that caved-in section was locked tightly onto his shoulder like a suction plate. He immediately realized that he had forgotten about the living nature of divine grade metals. In reality, Douluo couldn't be blamed for this. Barely anyone had ever come into contact with divine grade metals, and the properties of divine grade metals were only described through rumors. In addition to that, Douluo was only a soul Douluo, so Douluo had been quite complacent from the beginning, and as a result, he completely forgot that divine grade metals were living and intelligent entities. Right as Douluo's breastplate locked around Douluo's shoulders, he also threw his arms around Douluo, locking him in a tight embrace before he had a chance to react. What was he trying to do? In the next instant, Douluo provided the answer to that question. His 7th soul ring suddenly lit up, and dazzling purple light erupted from his 4-word battle armor. The entire sky was illuminated purple, and immediately thereafter, a giant steamer that had a diameter in excess of 10 meters appeared in front of everyone's eyes. This was Douluo's steamer true body, and both Douluo and Douluo had disappeared. The giant steamer was the only thing hanging in the sky. All of a sudden, a string of deafening explosions erupted within the steamer. The steamer was Douluo's martial soul true body, but where was Douluo? There was clearly only one answer. He was being cooked in the steamer. All of the people from the spirit pagoda were completely dumbstruck. They had thought that this was a guaranteed victory. Who could have envisioned such a turn of events? Even Dongfang was stunned by this farcical sight. This was a downright ridiculous scenario. The spirit pagoda had already gathered information about Douluo, but they had completely disregarded him as a non-factor in this plot to target Shrek Academy. It had always been thought that Douluo was the least threatening member of Shrek's 7 monsters, but what was going on here? Having said that, he wasn't the only one with a martial soul true body. Douluo also had one. Even if this were a true steamer, surely it couldn't cook Douluo alive. There was no way that Douluo would lose to a food system soul master. Dongfang was consoling himself with all his might. However, the explosions within the steamer were only becoming louder and louder, and clouds of purple smoke were billowing out like steam. The purple smoke seemed to be able to keep out spiritual power, and Dongfang was already unable to sense Douluo's aura anymore. Even Lan Muzi and Tang Yunmeng were completely astonished by what they were seeing, let alone their opponents. This had been a considerably fast match. The two of them had only clashed a few times before this farcical scenario eventuated. Everyone immediately turned their eyes toward Tang Wuling in unison, who could have given Yuan and Yui and Douluo their 4-word battle armor. There was only a single person capable of doing that. Even though he still hadn't participated in this match, he was heavily influencing everything with his abilities. He was still very young, but his maturity completely belied his age, and he wasn't the most powerful being of Shrek Academy, but he was the core of the entire academy. Pavilion Master. Lan Muzi turned to Tang Wuling with a smile. Pavilion Master. Tang Yunmeng also called out with a meaningful smile. A wry smile appeared on Tang Wuling's face. I know, you'll all get yours at some point as well. Regardless of how easygoing and unambitious this couple were, 4-word battle armor was simply far too tempting. At this moment, both of them were very thankful that a divine blacksmith had emerged in Shrek Academy. Even during its heyday prior to the bombing, Shrek Academy had never had a divine blacksmith among its ranks. In his heart, Tang Wuling knew that Douluo had made it to this point not because of his newly attained 4-word battle armor. Instead, it was due to his effort and hard work. Douluo had always had very low self-esteem, and that was even further exacerbated after he entered a relationship with Yinglin. He had always liked Yinglin, and it was exactly because of this that he knew just how powerful Yinglin was. In his mind, his powers and appearance were both far too lackluster for him to be a match for Yinglin. As such, he had to work even harder. His appearance was God-given and beyond his control, and he couldn't even control his own weight due to the special nature of his martial soul. However, he could strive to become more powerful. Back on the demonic island, he had immersed himself in the excruciating agony brought on by the destructive power. As a result, he had benefited the most from that experience and begun to find his own path. He didn't want to be a pure support system soul master. He wanted to be able to participate in battles as well. In the face of powerful enemies, he wanted to fight alongside his friends, and he wanted to be able to protect Yinglin in her hour of need. Chapter 1614. As such, he had constantly been striving to improve, constantly shedding more blood, sweat, and tears than anyone else. All of Shrek's 7 monsters were very exceptional, as evidenced by their incredible powers at their young ages. They were admired and envied by everyone, but all of them had their own stories, and only they knew just how much hard work and effort had been required to reach their current levels. That steamer in the sky was a manifestation of Douluo's consistent hard work over many years. He had always known that his aptitude in battle was far from exceptional, so he had to walk a different path from everyone else if he wanted to possess outstanding combat prowess. Boom. Right at this moment, the loudest explosion yet rang out, and the lid of the steamer was flung up into the air. Kaiyangyu Dongfang reflexively took a step forward upon seeing this. Had Douluo finally struggled free? However, as opposed to Douluo, what flew out of the steamer was a massive purplish black stuffed bun. The stuffed bun crashed down from the heavens, exploding violently as soon as it struck the ground. Up above, Shu Lizzie had reverted back to his human form, and his battle armor had already been withdrawn. His face was slightly pale, but his fists were tightly clenched, and his eyes were full of excitement. In the wake of the massive stuffed bun's explosion, an unconscious figure was revealed within the deep crater. It was none other than Douluo. However, he was currently in a very pitiful state. His battle armor was in tatters, and all of the pieces were either broken or severely dented. A faint smile appeared on Shu Lizzie's face as he descended back to the Shrek Academy camp. Shrek Academy had secured victory in the 5th match, and the score was 3-2. All of the previous matches had progressed as planned aside from the fact that the Heavenly Phoenix Douluo had missed her clash with the Holy Spirit Douluo. But the outcome of this match was completely unexpected. A Hyper Douluo losing to a Soul Douluo was something that had almost never been seen throughout all of history. And what was even more incredible was that the Soul Douluo in this case was a food system soul master. Even Domo himself didn't know how he had lost. The clash was temporarily put on pause so emergency treatment could be administered to Domo, and only then did he wake up from his unconscious state. However, he immediately fell unconscious again upon witnessing how severely damaged his suit of 3-word battle armor had become. The damage was far too severe. Even if it could be repaired to its original state, its power would definitely be severely debilitated. Should we continue, Chairman Kaiyangyu? Tang Wolin asked with a smile. Kaiyangyu Dongfang replied with a dark expression. Of course. This doesn't change anything. 3, 2, 1, begin. One person rose up from each camp, and as soon as the Shrek Academy representative ascended into the air, a pleasant ringing sound reverberated through the air, as if something had been awakened. The Spirit Pagoda representative was a woman, and just like Domo, she was one of the core members of the Spirit Pagoda. Her skin was very wizened and wrinkly, and her hair was extremely disheveled. Furthermore, there was a tumor-like growth on her forehead, making her look even more hideous than she already was. Her back was completely hunched over, and if it weren't for her ability to take flight, it would have been impossible to tell that she was a powerful soul master. The Shrek Academy representative was none other than one of Shrek's 7 monsters, Yizinglan. Prior to her departure, she gave Shu Lizzie a gentle hug. She didn't offer him any words of praise. Her embrace alone was already the best reward for Shu Lizzie. As Yizinglan rose up into the air, she gave off a special aura, and in contrast with Shu Lizzie's sturdy and rotund appearance, she was far more lithe and agile. The pleasant ringing sound had erupted from within her body, and her long hair had been arranged into a long braided ponytail, giving her a very sharp and tidy appearance. The old woman gave a self-introduction. Spirit Pagoda, Li Munjae. It was a very beautiful name, but it didn't quite match her appearance. However, her name was extremely renowned as she was a former spirit envoy. Even after her retirement, she was still a core member of the Spirit Pagoda. The Kaiyangyu family was the #1 family of the Spirit Pagoda, but it definitely didn't stand alone. Even the Kaiyangyu family only held 10 of the 36 core member spots in the Spirit Pagoda, and this was already an absolute advantage. However, whenever important events came up, Kaiyangyu Dongfang still had to communicate with all of the core members, and Li Munjae was one of those important figures. She had already retired around 30 years ago, and she was from the same generation as the likes of the Holy Spirit Douluo and Heavenly Phoenix Douluo. She didn't care about her own appearance and hadn't consumed any spirit items, which was why she looked so weathered and aged. Perhaps not many people would know the name of Li Munjae, but her title of demonic maiden Douluo was definitely extremely renowned. During her younger days, she had been rejected by a man due to her hideous appearance, and as a result, she had become extremely sadistic, taking pleasure in toying with men. Her martial soul was very special. She referred to it as a celestial maiden, but the vast majority of people referred to her as demonic maiden. This was a clone-like ability that was also similar to a second personality. The demonic maiden martial soul was adept in all types of control abilities, as well as melee combat, making her an assault and control dual system soul master. Li Munjae would often use her martial soul's entrancement ability to lure in men, then reveal her true appearance, taking pleasure in the horrified reactions of those men. Many male soul masters had fallen prey to her sadistic ploy, and as a result, Shrek Academy had even directly asked the Spirit Pagoda to keep her in check. If it weren't for the fact that she had never killed anyone, Shrek Academy would have most likely already taken forceful measures against her. The Spirit Pagoda seemed to also think that her antics had gone too far, and she was asked to step down from her role as Spirit Envoy. Li Munjae definitely didn't harbor any affection for Shrek Academy, so she certainly wasn't going to be holding back in this match. Shrek Academy, Yizinglan. Yizinglan responded in kind. In contrast with her sharp aura of the past, she was now a lot more placid and restrained. Li Munjae suddenly chuckled, and to everyone's surprise her chuckling voice was actually quite pleasant to the ears. You're such a beautiful girl. Come here and let me take a good look. She took a step forward as she spoke, instantly covering a distance of hundreds of meters before reaching out a wizened hand toward Yizinglan's delicate cheek. A speck of starlight suddenly exploded in front of Yizinglan, blasting Li Munjae's hand away. But right at this moment, an additional figure abruptly appeared behind Yizinglan. Chapter 1615. This was another woman who appeared to be in her 20s, wearing a white dress and a thin white veil over her face. The curves of her gorgeous figure were indistinctly visible through her thin white dress, and she reached a finger out toward the back of Yizinglan's head. Another speck of starlight appeared behind Yizinglan's head with unerring accuracy, and the finger was also forced back while Yizinglan's body suddenly took on an illusionary quality. Right as a wizened palm flashed past her cheek, in the blink of an eye, 2 exchanges had already taken place. The woman in white appeared silently behind Li Munjae before disappearing into her body. This was none other than Li Munjae's demonic maiden martial soul. It didn't appear as if Li Munjae had used any soul skills, but her body suddenly left a trail of after images in its wake as she grabbed toward Yizinglan again. At this point, Yizinglan's star god sword had already appeared in her grasp, and she remained completely unflustered as she slashed her sword through the air, unleashing her second soul skill, sword god net. Looking from down below, it was as if fireworks were flourishing up above, and the attack didn't release much power, but a hint of surprise appeared on Kaiyangyu Dongfang's face at the sight of it. This was a sword chi that had its essence completely restrained. It appeared to be harmless, but the sword chi would only erupt upon contact. Li Munjae cackled as she thrust her finger forward over and over again, pointing directly at the points where the sword god net were connected. The sword god net was instantly taken apart, but the sword chi it contained also instantly erupted, sending a string of ringing sounds reverberating through the air. Li Munjae faltered momentarily, and a speck of starlight arrived right before her like an illusion. All of a sudden, the illusion vanished, and only one Li Munjae was left in midair. Between the index and middle fingers of her right hand held the tip of Yizinglan's star god sword. Not bad at all. The pristine white figure reappeared, and she began to rotate on the spot, releasing a burst of powerful rotational force that dragged Yizinglan's body off to the side. This was her demonic maiden dance. Yizinglan withdrew her star god sword, and she rose up into the air as a dazzling sword projection to escape the influence of the rotational force. In the next instant, a speck of resplendent starlight descended from above. This was her third soul skill, sword starfall. The demonic maiden dance continued, and the vortex suddenly expanded before abruptly converging, seemingly in an attempt to devour and destroy the speck of starlight. However, a storm of countless stars suddenly rained down from the heavens, completely illuminating the vortex. This was Yizinglan's fourth soul skill, sword star rain. The demonic maiden rose up into the air, and the vortex vanished. Li Munjae also appeared beside the demonic maiden, and the two of them held hands as they stood in midair with the starry rain as their backdrop. All of a sudden, Li Munjae vanished, and a short sword appeared in the demonic maiden's hand. The sword was slashed through the air, and time seemed to have suddenly stopped as a gentle voice rang out. I, miss you. Upon hearing these 3 gentle words, even the people spectating the battle down below felt chills run down their spines, particularly as the voice was accompanied by the alluring side of the veiled demonic maiden. Those words being spoken by such an exquisite beauty naturally sent one's mind aflutter. As those words were being uttered, the demonic maiden's short sword had already reached Yizinglan, and it had left a string of ripples through the air. Yizinglan's expression changed slightly at the sight of these ripples, and she shot back like lightning, having been completely unaffected by the demonic maiden's words. She was completely dedicated to her sword, so her willpower and mental fortitude were unshakable. In the past, Yuana Nui had been very introverted and unwilling to open up to anyone due to her tragic past. Now that everything was behind her, she was a lot more bubbly and lively. In contrast, Yizinglan was truly focused entirely on her cultivation, and the only people she shared emotional ties with were Shu Lizzie and her friends. As such, regardless of how alluring that voice was, it couldn't affect her her even in the slightest. However, the warped light released by the short sword was different. It only encompassed a very small area, but it struck Yu Xinglan with the same feeling as Tang Wulin's Millennium White Clouds, indicating that the short sword was imbued with the power of space and time. A cold light flashed through Yu Xinglan's eyes as she suddenly stopped in midair. Specks of dazzling starlight erupted from her body, making her look as if she had turned completely transparent. At the same time, her seventh soul ring lit up, and that pleasant ringing sound rang out once again, evoking the mental image of an exceptional sword about to be drawn out of its scabbard. This was her seventh soul skill, Star God Sword True Body. Ding! The Star God sword was thrust forward and struck the tip of the short sword with unerring accuracy, instantly knocking it upward. The warped light was shattered, and Li Munjie reappeared beside the demonic maiden with a dark expression. She reached out with her right hand and grabbed onto the demonic maiden's shoulder, and in the next instant, the demonic maiden transformed into a streak of white light that converged over her hand. This was a slender staff, at the tip of which was a carving identical to the demonic maiden. The staff was waved in Yu Xinglan's direction, and a plume of white mist surged forth. The mist was comprised of countless thin needles, affording Yu Xinglan no avenues for evasion, and Yu Xinglan didn't choose to take evasive measures anyway. All of a sudden, a star lit up in the sky to illuminate Yu Xinglan, and the Star God sword was slashed through the air, slicing the white mist in half. A peerlessly sharp streak of light flashed through the air, forcing Li Munjie to evade. She swept her staff horizontally through the air, and the surrounding light abruptly vanished, plunging the entire area into darkness. However, Yu Xinglan remained completely unfazed even in the face of this domain-like ability. A speck of starlight appeared above her again, and she abruptly vanished on the spot. This was her fifth soul skill, Star Sword. A peerlessly sharp aura began to take shape in the sky, and it was spreading at an alarming speed. Countless specks of scintillating starlight appeared, and it was as if the entire sky were about to be torn apart. Each speck of starlight made the darkness recede a little, and Li Munjie reverted back to her original form with a bewildered look on her face. At the beginning of the battle, she had sensed that Yu Xinglan was only a rookie titled Douluo. It was definitely very astonishing to see a titled Douluo at such a young age, but in terms of battle experience and power, Yu Xinglan should have been far inferior to her. However, as the battle progressed, she began to have more and more doubts about her own judgment. This match didn't seem to be as intense as the previous ones, but this type of melee combat was the most dangerous as being struck by even a single attack would result in an immediate defeat. During the last match, Li Munjie had already deduced that Shu Lizzie wouldn't have been able to maintain his four-word battle armor for long. If it weren't for the most overt pride and complacency, Shu Lizzie would have had no chance in a battle of attrition. Chapter 1616. Upon making this realization, she had communicated to Kyangu Dongfang that she wanted to fight in the next match. She naturally wasn't going to make the same mistake as Douluo, so even though she was constantly pressuring Yu Xinglan with her attacks, she was also carefully appraising Yu Xinglan this entire time. Much to her surprise, not only did Yu Xinglan possess extensive battle experience, she was very good at maximizing her advantages, and she was like an impregnable fortress. Throughout this entire match, her sword intent was constantly subdued, and even when counterattacking, she never allowed herself to overextend and give Li Munjie any opportunities. That short sword that Li Munjie had just transformed into was her demonic maiden sword, and it was able to devour the target's life force upon contact. The life force of normal people was pointless to her. Only the life energy of a young and exuberant titled Douluo could replenish her needs. However, Yu Xinglan had chosen to evade without any hesitation. Now that Yu Xinglan was commencing her counterattack, Li Munjie could clearly sense that she had already attained a sword soul, and that it definitely hadn't been attained only recently. Was this the power of the Shrek Academy students? Li Munjie's eyes narrowed slightly in the face of this unexpectedly troublesome opponent. However, what was quite encouraging to Li Munjie was that Yu Xinglan had released her martial soul true body first. How long would she be able to maintain this form? Abilities like martial soul true bodies and battle armor domains consumed a lot of energy, which was why it was generally accepted that the one who released such abilities first during battle were conceding a disadvantage, unless they could secure victory in one fell swoop like Shu Lizzie had just done. As such, it was clear that Yu Xinglan was about to unleash an extremely powerful attack, and Li Munjie could clearly sense that this attack was going to pose a huge threat to her. By her estimations, there was a very good chance that she wouldn't be able to withstand this attack unless she released her martial soul true body or battle armor. In this situation, she immediately made a decision. The demonic maiden reappeared, but was immediately dragged onto her own body, and the two figures combined, upon which a peculiar product emerged. The body still belonged to the alluring demonic maiden, but the face attached to that body belonged to Li Munjie, creating a rather chilling contrast. A hint of struggle appeared in her eyes, and her wizened features began to warp and transform, as if she was struggling to become young and beautiful. However, in the end, only half of her face successfully transformed. From the side, one could easily be forgiven for thinking that they were appraising a stunning beauty. However, from the front, one would discover that half of the face belonged to Li Munjie, while the other half was in the demonic maiden's appearance. This was Li Munjie's martial soul true body, heavenly demon transformation. After completing her transformation, the same staff from before appeared in Li Munjie's right hand, while the short sword appeared in her left. Right at this moment, a beam of radiant starlight descended, and countless galaxies seemed to be contained within the starlight. This was Yu Xinglan's sixth soul skill, Sword Star Soul. In her Star God sword body form, Yu Xinglan's sword intent and sword soul were both released to their maximal extent, and all of her subdued power was instantly released in an explosive assault. Li Munjie's expression changed slightly upon seeing this, and she quickly donned her suit of battle armor. Her battle armor was also very peculiar. The left side was black, while the right side was white to match the two halves of her face. In the face of this attack, she had been forced to don her suit of three-word battle armor. Right at this moment, the sky suddenly turned dark as if night had fallen, and countless specks of starlight emerged. This was Yu Xinglan's three-word battle armor domain, Dazzling Galaxy. During the construction of her battle armor, Yu Xinglan had intentionally emulated Xu Xiaowen's domain. With the enhancement from her Dazzling Galaxy domain, all of her attacks became around twice as powerful. A solemn look appeared on Li Munjie's face as she drew a circle with her short sword, creating a round door that was filled with warped light. As Yu Xinglan's attack approached her, a part of it simply passed through her as if she were merely an illusion. This was her eighth soul skill, Mortal Coil. She raised her staff high up into the air, and a massive white vortex appeared as her body began to rapidly revolve, sweeping up all of the specks of starlight. This was her other eighth soul skill, Heavenly Demon Gravity Field. That's right, in a sense, her demonic maiden martial soul was equivalent to twin martial souls, and that was why she had so many soul skills at her disposal. However, her martial soul was different from normal twin martial souls as it was essentially one martial soul that had been divided into two extremely similar or contrasting pieces. Another example of this was Shishi's twin martial souls prior to their evolution to become the space-time dragon. Right at this moment, the projection of a sky that was identical to the one above Li Munjie appeared beneath her feet, and what was even more peculiar was that there was also a galaxy of stars surging through that projected sky. Just a moment ago, she had been standing on solid ground, yet now, it was as if she were in outer space. She was completely enveloped on all sides by a starry sky, and the surging galaxy instantly formed a massive starry vortex that encompassed her entire body. Li Munjie's expression changed drastically upon seeing this. Never did she think that Yu Xinglan would be this powerful. Piercing light erupted from Li Munjie's body, and a layer of pink light spread through the air beneath her feet. As soon as the starlight came into contact with this pink light, the former would instantly fade away. Due to the fact that she had just unleashed her eight soul skills, it was already too late to switch to a different soul skill, so she could only unleash her three-word battle armor domain, Heavenly Demon Demise. The domain possessed extremely corrosive properties, and even though it didn't encompass a large area, anyone caught within it would have their body eroded into nothingness. Furthermore, the domain also excelled in defense, protecting Li Munjie from a large portion of the bombardment of starlight. But there was simply too much starlight to deal with. Each speck of starlight was formed by the purest sword chi from the Star God sword and was extremely sharp. She could nullify the attacks, but she was unable to keep out the sharp sword intent imbued within the sword chi, and her mind was beginning to receive heavy blows. All of the spectators down below could only see a vast expanse of radiant starlight, but they didn't know what was happening. The terrifying power currently being displayed by the Star God sword was not inferior to the power that Yuan and Yui had displayed earlier. Boom, boom, boom. 3 layers of light exploded in quick succession beside Li Munjie, scattering much of the starlight, as well as the invading sword intent. However, more starlight continued to surge toward her, and it seemed that there was no end to this attack. Li Munjie felt as if she had sunken into a swamp where she had to constantly withstand extremely fearsome attacks. Wasn't she only a rookie titled Douluo? How was she able to maintain such a fierce assault for so long? The sword projections were so sharp that Li Munjie didn't even dare to use her battle armor to directly withstand them. Chapter 1617. The humiliating defeat suffered by Douluo was obviously still clear in her mind. Losing the match wasn't a big deal, but if her suit of 3-word battle armor were ruined, then that would be a massive loss. The two of them seemed to have fallen into an impasse, and no one could see what condition New Zealand was in, but her attacks continued to flow toward Li Munjie in an unrelenting wave. Li Munjie's domain and defenses were slowly being worn down, and everyone down below was appraising the battle with nervous expressions. All of a sudden, Li Munjie heaved a resigned sigh as if she had just made a very difficult decision, and she swept her right hand through the air to release a burst of translucent light. This was a cloak that was almost completely transparent, and it instantly draped itself over her entire body. The oncoming streaks of starlight that struck her body were then all repelled by the cloak, leaving her completely unharmed. Immediately thereafter, a light barrier was released by the cloak, enveloping Li Munjie within it. Regardless of how fierce New Zealand's assault became, it was unable to breach this layer of defense. Tang Wulin's expression immediately stiffened as he identified the cloak to be a divine weapon. This wasn't the first time that he was seeing a divine weapon from the Spirit Pagoda, and it was undoubtedly the case that the Spirit Pagoda was currently the wealthiest organization on the entire continent. Li Munjie hailed from an ancient family that had been an integral part of the Spirit Pagoda for thousands of years, and the divine weapon she was using was her family's most prized treasure. After each usage, this Celestial Maiden cloak would take an entire year to recharge, so it wasn't to be used unless the situation absolutely necessitated its usage. Under the protection of the Celestial Maiden cloak, all of New Zealand's attacks had been completely kept at bay. After a few more minutes, the barrage of starlight finally began to thin out, and New Zealand was revealed, hovering in midair with a slightly pale complexion. Her grip on her Star God sword was still as steady as ever, and she took a deep breath as she prepared to unleash a new barrage of attacks. Even after witnessing her opponent's divine weapon, she had no intention of backing down. However, right at this moment, Li Munjie suddenly sprang into action. She held her short sword forward, and it transformed into a massive white veil that encompassed heaven and earth. At the same time, she waved her staff, and 9 projections of the demonic maiden appeared in midair. The white veil swept forth, and all 9 demonic maidens thrust a finger toward Yu Zinglan in unison, unleashing 9 streaks of piercing light that reached Yu Zinglan in a flash. Yu Zinglan swung her Star God sword in retaliation, but the 9 streaks of light were all imbued with extremely fearsome power, and each of them was rotating in a different direction. This was Li Munjie's 9th soul skill, 9 fingers of the heavenly demon. As for that white veil, that was her baleful heavenly veil, which was an attack formed by the most powerful baleful aura. This was a last-ditch effort for Li Munjie, and both Yu Zinglan and her Star God sword began to tremor in the face of the 9 fingers. Finally, one of the fingers struck her left shoulder, and she gave a muffled groan as she stumbled back in retreat. The baleful heavenly veil instantly swept forth to bind her tightly, and in the next instant, the short sword had already reappeared and reached her glabella. The match was decided. Li Munjie looked into Yu Zinglan's eyes and said, "You've done very well, lass. This is not a glorious victory for me. Perhaps I would have already lost if not for my Celestial Maiden cloak. Can you tell me the name of that last technique that you unleashed?" Yu Zinglan replied in an expressionless manner, "Revolving heaven and stars." That's right, it was her 8th soul skill, Revolving heaven and stars. She had first released her sword soul to unleash a devastating assault, then used Revolving heaven and stars to replicate a galaxy to attack Li Munjie from all directions. Yu Zinglan had poured everything that she had into that attack, and it had been extremely fearsome. Li Munjie nodded in response. "The future belongs to your generation." She then withdrew her baleful heavenly veil and slowly descended. A hint of disappointment appeared in Yu Zinglan's eyes, and she also returned to the ground. Tang Wulin hurriedly made his way over to her, and consoled, "It's all right. She only won because she had a divine weapon." However, Yu Zinglan didn't even look at him. Instead, she was murmuring to herself, "My soul power is still too lackluster. If I had been able to unleash my 9th soul skill there, the outcome would have perhaps been different." Tang Wulin was rendered speechless upon hearing this. Thus, the score stood at a tie with 3 points for each side. However, technically speaking, Shrek Academy had gained a slight upper hand, particularly in that final match, where Li Munjie had even been forced to use a divine weapon. Just as Li Munjie had admitted herself, that was not a glorious victory for her. Thus came the 7th and final one-on-one match. Tang Wulin strode forward, as did Kayang Dou on the other side. "Are you planning to take part in this match, Sect Master Tang?" Kayang Dongfang asked with a smile. Tang Wulin smiled, and replied, "I'd be willing to take part if you'll be my opponent." Kayang Dongfang chuckled. "Sure, why not? Go ahead," Tang Wulin prompted. Kayang Dongfang immediately rose up into the air. He was a limit Douluo, and in his eyes, no matter how powerful Tang Wulin was, there was no way he stood a chance in a one-on-one battle. After all, he had been defeated by Du Yuna during the Joust for a Spouse event, and she wasn't even a limit Douluo. If the chairman of the Spirit Pagoda could defeat the Tang Sect Master, then that would be a massive symbolic victory. However, instead of Tang Wulin, it was someone else who rose up into the air from Shrek Academy. Furthermore, he only sprang up to an altitude of around 20 meters before descending back down onto the ground. I concede. This person was standing near the back of the Shrek Academy camp, so no one had noticed his existence. His appearance was very ordinary, and there weren't even many people in Shrek Academy who recognized him, let alone the people from the Spirit Pagoda. "What are you doing, Uncle Lee?" Tang Wulin hurriedly rushed toward the man with a panicked expression. The man looked to be in his 50s, and was wearing a set of very minimalistic cloth garments. He turned to Tang Wulin with a wry smile, and said, "I'm sorry, Pavilion Master, I wanted to do my part for the Academy." Tang Wulin's expression darkened slightly. "Uncle Lee, you." Uncle Lee sighed. "I wanted to do my part, but he's way too powerful for me, so I had no choice but to concede." Tang Wulin asked in an accusatory voice, "Uncle Lee, you're not a Spirit Pagoda spy, are you?" Uncle Lee immediately shook his head vigorously. "Of course not. I've been tending to the front entrance of our Shrek Academy for over 30 years. If it weren't for the fact that I just so happened to be on holiday during the bombing, I would already be dead, even after the bombing. I immediately came back upon receiving news of the Academy's rebuild. You can't slander me like this, Pavilion Master." Kayang Dongfang was completely perplexed. Was this guy really a spy from the Spirit Pagoda? If so, why had he never heard of him? All of a sudden, Kayang Dongfang realized what was going on. However, before he had a chance to say anything, Tang Wulin looked up at him with an indignant expression, and said, "Fine, we can't go back on our word, so we can see this match. Congratulations, Chairman Kayang. You've beaten our Academy security guard." Kayang Dongfang descended from above with a furious expression. "This is clearly a ploy from you to avoid having to face me in battle." A cold smile appeared on Tang Wulin's face. "You planted a spy in our Academy, yet you're accusing me of foul play. How about you concede the match instead so you can feature in the later matches?" Chapter 1618. Kayang Dongfang's mind was racing as he assessed the situation, but no matter how he thought about it, it was clear that Tang Wulin had screwed him over. "You think you're going to win through these devious little tricks?" Tang Wulin harumphed coldly in response. "Do you want to continue or not?" Kayang Dongfang knew that he had fallen for Tang Wulin's trap. Tang Wulin had used a completely inconsequential figure in a matchup against Kayang Dongfang, thereby preventing him from being able to feature in the 2-on-2 matches. If the 2-on-2 matches were only worth 1 point each, then there wouldn't be an issue, but that wasn't the case. Tang Wulin had clearly tricked him, yet he was playing the victim. Taking a look at the bigger picture, Shrek Academy had indeed fallen behind by 1 point, but both Leng Yaoshu and Kayang Dongfang were now unable to feature in the 2-on-2 matches. Leng Yaoshu was also a rookie limit Douluo like Yali, but she was a 4-word battle armor master and an assault system soul master. If she had been paired against Yali in a 1-on-1 battle, her victory would have virtually been assured. However, even though he and Leng Yaoshu had earned 2 points for the Spirit Pagoda, Shrek Academy hadn't been forced to use any of its important pieces. Neither Yali nor Long Yayu had taken part in any matches thus far, and they were clearly playing the long game, saving their most powerful beings for the matches that were worth the most points. However, if he thought that he could win like this, then he was dead wrong. The Spirit Pagoda had far more depth than he could imagine. With that in mind, Kayang Dongfang was instilled with even more confidence. At the very least, this was a concession of weakness from Shrek Academy. Resurrecting Yanming was nothing but a joke. He had already inquired the Holy Spirit cult about such a possibility, and he had been told that only a god would be able to resurrect Yanming. Only a wisp of his soul remained, and it could only just barely survive in an object. Let's continue. Show me what other little tricks you have up your sleeve. Tang Wulin's expression had already returned to normal at this point, and it was impossible to tell what he was thinking. Meanwhile, the students and parents in the distance were all quite perplexed. How had that spy been planted into Shrek Academy? Even though the Spirit Pagoda was leading by a point, the two powers were evenly matched in the eyes of all of the bystanders. All of the parents were thoroughly enjoying this spectacular show. Ticket prices for a showdown of such epic proportions would undoubtedly be extremely expensive, yet they were able to spectate for free, even though there were live broadcasts on all the television channels. Seeing the clash live was a completely different experience. Furthermore, this was an impromptu clash, so the television crews were very ill prepared and could only shoot the footage from the ground, thereby compromising on clarity. Tang Wulin and Kyangu Dongfang faced each other again before giving a countdown in unison. 3, 2, 1, begin. Two more figures instantly flew up into the air. 1-on-1 and 2-on-2 matches have been around in the Soul Master world since the beginning of time. Even back in Tang San's generation, these were already very common competition formats. In particular, the 2-on-2 matches were very common for Soul Masters with soul fusion skills. The representatives from the Spirit Pagoda were a pair of tall middle-aged men who appeared to be in their 30s with burly physiques and military buzz cuts. What was most interesting about them was that they were a pair of identical twins. This was a clear indication that there was a very good chance they possessed a soul fusion skill. Generally speaking, twin Soul Masters had great synergy with one another, and there was a very good chance that they possessed soul fusion skills from birth. Tang Wulin had encountered similar opponents in his younger days, and they had posed quite a stern challenge to him. As the twins rose up into the air, they released their soul rings in unison, and both of their soul ring configurations consisted of 3 purples and 6 blacks. This was slightly inferior to the Spirit Pagoda representatives that had come before them, and it made it even more likely that they possessed a soul fusion skill. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been granted the opportunity to represent the Spirit Pagoda in this clash. Tang Wulin couldn't help but be impressed by the depth of the Spirit Pagoda. Many of the Soul Masters that had featured in the matches today were ones that Tang Wulin had never seen before, but all of them were titled Douluos. In a normal small sect, a titled Douluo was enough to ensure the prosperity of the entire sect, but in the Spirit Pagoda, it seemed that titled Douluos were a dime a dozen. Through the allure of its soul spirits, it was able to recruit a whole host of powerful beings. The 2 representatives from Shrek Academy were also very burly and muscular. In fact, they were far more imposing than their opponents, but they weren't twins. The one on the left was extremely tall and broad with glistening bald heads, and his clothes did nothing to conceal his cartoonishly developed muscles. The one beside him was slightly shorter, but he was just as imposing and gave off an indescribably overbearing aura. These 2 were none other than Arahang and Sima Jinkai. Sima Jinkai couldn't leave Tang Wulin, and Arahang didn't have anywhere to go, so both of them had been recruited by Tang Wulin to become teachers of Shrek Academy. Teaching was a new challenge to both of them, and they didn't know whether they would be good teachers, but they were both very interested and immediately agreed. Prior to this, it had already been decided that they would feature in the first 2-on-2 battle. The Spirit Pagoda had very little information about these 2. Arahang had stayed in the body sect his entire life and only emerged into the outside world as a Soul Douluo, while Sima Jinkai's files had been kept confidential by the Southern Legion where he had been a high-ranking military official. He was constantly by Tang Wulin's side like a weapon, and he didn't receive much attention as he rarely ever did anything worthy of note. Even during the Joust for a Spouse event, he had only appeared in disguise. As such, Kyangu Dongfang's brows furrowed slightly at the sight of these 2. He could sense that both of them were very powerful titled Douluos, but he was also very confident in the twins representing the Spirit Pagoda. After all, synergy was very important in 2-on-2 battles. Sima Jinkai and Arahang exchanged a glance, then immediately turned away from one another with disdainful expressions. I'm telling you, don't weigh me down. Sima Jinkai scoffed. Arahang harumphed coldly in response. Piss off. I can handle them on my own. Don't get in my way. Chapter 1619. You've got nothing aside from brute strength. I would never team up with you if not for Master's instructions. The 2 of them were bickering very loudly, making no attempt to conceal their conflict at all. Tang Wulin couldn't help but bury his face into his own hands. Why are they doing this again? A hesitant look appeared on Yali's face. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Synergy is very important in 2-on-2 battles. Tang Wulin took a resigned glance at Yali before gently shaking his head. Of course, Kyangu Dongfang was able to see all of this, but he wasn't convinced in the slightest. What was the point of putting on such an act? Both of these Shrek Academy representatives were titled Douluos, so it was very clear that they didn't have anyone left. Having said that, he had to carefully observe these 2 as it was very likely that they would appear in the final 7-on-7 match. After all, most of the current Shrek 7 monsters didn't seem to have reached the titled Douluo level yet, so there was no way that all of them would participate in the final match. At this point, both sides had already reached a sufficient altitude. The Spirit Pagoda representatives consisted of a pair of identical twins, and the elder brother was named by Hauser, while the name of the younger brother was by Tyson. As the 2 of them began to slow down in their descent, a pair of pristine white wings emerged out of each of their backs. To the experienced eye, it was immediately made apparent that the 2 of them possessed flying beast-type martial souls. What was even more peculiar was that a horn had also emerged on the top of each of their heads. The horn on by Hauser's head was a golden corkscrew horn, while the horn on by Tyson's head was silver, presenting a resplendent duo. Wings and a horn. What kind of a martial soul was this? None of the people from Shrek Academy recognized these 2, so they were clearly not renowned soul masters. They were most likely secret weapons of the Spirit Pagoda. Arahang was never one to carefully analyze his opponents. His battle style was extremely simple: do everything by force. Arahang's muscles bulged as he let loose a thunderous roar, then shot forth toward the Bai brothers like a shooting star. As a result, he instantly distanced himself from Sima Jinkai, and it seems that the 2 of them had thrown teamwork completely out the window. Even the most ordinary of bystanders could tell that these were not good tactics for 2-on-2 battles. What was even more peculiar was Sima Jinkai's reactions. As Arahang charged toward the Bai brothers, Sima Jinkai merely remained on the spot and crossed his arms, looking as if he were about to enjoy a good show. Was this really a 2-on-2 battle? Before anyone had a chance to analyze the situation in greater depth, Arahang had already reached his opponents and was swinging his massive fist directly toward Bai Tyson. Bai Tyson dodged to the side, quickly switching positions with his brother, and at the same time, white light erupted from both of their bodies, making it appear as if a pair of scintillating suns had appeared in the sky. At the same time, a powerful wave of light elements erupted forth before crashing heavily into Arahang's body. Arahang was immediately sent flying like a cannonball. Even with his incredibly powerful body, he was unable to withstand the attack and was sent flying for over a kilometer with golden flames burning all over his body. Sima Jinkai was given quite a fright upon seeing this, and he immediately released his martial soul. Only after his dragon-slaying saber had appeared in his grasp did he feel slightly more comfortable. What exactly was their opponent's martial soul? Its offensive prowess was truly astounding. Sima Jinkai was well aware of how powerful Arahang was. Arahang was very loud and arrogant, but in terms of strength and defensive prowess, Tang Wulin was the only one in Shrek Academy who could compare with him, and that was even factoring in the limit Douluo. He was one of only 2 people in this generation to have mastered the body sex congenital secret method, and that was certainly no joke. As such, the fact that even he had been sent flying was a testament to just how powerful the opponent's attack had been. After the ball of golden light blasted Arahang through the air, it suddenly shrank down from its original diameter of 5 meters to around only 3 meters, following which a layer of silver light appeared over its surface. Immediately thereafter, the massive ball of golden light suddenly teleported over to Sima Jinkai and enveloped his entire body. The first thought that occurred to Sima Jinkai was that he had been set on fire. Not only was the golden ball of light filled with unbearably scorching heat, it was also releasing a burst of powerful suction force that prevented him from being able to get away. The total sum of energy within this attack was most likely close to the limit Douluo level, and it was clear that this was the Bai brothers' soul fusion skill. Sima Jinkai knew that his defensive prowess was inferior to Arahang's, and he immediately released his suit of battle armor. His dark yellow battle armor was very thick and sturdy, and he slashed his dragon-slaying saber through the air, defending himself with his own saber soul rather than using any soul skills. All of a sudden, reddish golden flames erupted to envelop Sima Jinkai's entire body, and he was also sent flying like a cannonball. Even though he was protected by his own suit of battle armor and was able to quickly snuff out the flames, he was clearly looking a little panicked. The golden ball of light compressed once again, and the silver light reappeared. Right at this moment, a string of thunderous thumps rang out. Lub dub, lub dub, lub dub. The golden ball of light was clearly affected by this sound and faltered on the spot as if it had suddenly become very sluggish. In the next instant, Arahang had already flown back to where he had been standing before. Sima Jinkai didn't even look at him as he slashed his dragon-slaying saber through the air, and all of a sudden, the sky dimmed and fierce gusts of wind swept forth as a massive illusion was conjured up. The illusion was extremely realistic, and it was comprised of countless giant dragons hovering in midair, while Sima Jinkai and Arahang had completely vanished. This was Sima Jinkai's battle armor domain. Myriad weird dragon lore, dull dragon's roars reverberated through the air, and it was as if the entire sky were filled with giant dragons, presenting a breathtaking sight to behold. The golden ball of light came to an abrupt halt, having clearly lost track of its targets. Bauhauser and Weisheisen's soul fusion skill was named ephemeral light, and their martial soul was the extremely rare and powerful unicorn. However, the difference was that Bauhauser's martial soul was the light unicorn, while Weisheisen's was the spatial unicorn, and that was what gave rise to their incredibly powerful soul fusion skill. They had been discovered by the spirit pagoda when they had traveled there to obtain their first soul spirits, and they were immediately recruited with extremely extravagant compensation provided in exchange. Within the span of 25 years, both of them had become titled Douluos, and due to the fact that they were identical twins, their martial souls had a harmony rate of over 80%. Furthermore, the light and spatial powers that they possessed made their soul fusion skill extremely versatile. As such, it was able to last longer than normal soul fusion skills. Individually, they were only a pair of titled Douluos, but together, they were one of the spirit pagoda's most formidable duos. As the ball of light hovered within the domain, it began to turn transparent, and the Bai brothers were gradually revealed standing inside it. Their horns had become particularly bright and were radiating scintillating golden and silver light. All of a sudden, an authoritative voice rang out across the entire heavens. Do you admit to your crimes? A giant white dragon had been thrust onto a tall platform, and its head was pressed against the ground as its massive body trembled incessantly. I do. The giant white dragon replied in a feeble voice, seemingly extremely fearful of something. All right, then today, I will seal your light. The authoritative voice rang out again. Immediately thereafter, a giant saber that was radiating nine-colored light appeared in the sky. The massive saber came crashing down, and it was as if the entire sky had been instantly torn apart. A streak of light flashed past, and the sky fell dim as all of the golden light completely vanished. Chapter 1620. To the shock and horror of Bauhauser, he could feel the light elements around him fading away at an astonishing rate, as if an invisible black hole had appeared to devour all of the light elements in his body. This was a terrifying feeling, and he immediately tried to resist, but no matter how much he struggled, it was all to no avail. The ephemeral light instantly dissipated, while Bauhauser immediately released his suit of battle armor. A golden suit of battle armor instantly encapsulated his entire body, but his aura of light was still continuing to recede. Right at this moment, a massive hulking figure descended from the sky before slamming his fists viciously downward. It was none other than Arahang. The last attack didn't seem to have inflicted any substantial injuries upon him. It had only incinerated his clothes and charred his skin slightly black. As he came crashing down from above, it was as if he were threatening to shatter heaven and earth. Silver light flashed, and Bauhauser vanished into thin air before reappearing over 100 meters away. After teleporting his brother away, silver light also flashed from Weisheisen's body, and he instantly appeared behind Arahang before stomping a foot toward his spine. Arahang didn't even bother to evade, allowing Weisheisen to stomp on his neck before abruptly contracting his trapezoid muscles, using it to grab onto Weisheisen's foot like a hand. His terrifying strength erupted forth alongside his enormous blood essence, and right as Weisheisen was about to teleport away, the space around him suddenly exploded, rendering him unable to detect any spatial fluctuations. In the next instant, Arahang had already appeared in front of him before grabbing toward his body. In this dire situation, Weisheisen swiped his right hand over his own head, and his silver horn transformed into a longsword that stabbed straight toward Arahang. Once again, Arahang made no effort to evade, allowing the longsword to pierce into his palm. Blood splattered everywhere as the corkscrew blade of the sword plunged into his hand, only to be immediately locked into place by Arahang's muscles. His blood essence erupted forth once again to shatter the surrounding space, and he wrenched Weisheisen toward himself before enveloping Weisheisen in a tight embrace. He then chortled with glee as he squeezed with all his might, and even Weisheisen's three-word battle armor began to groan and creak with excessive strain in the face of his extraordinary strength. Meanwhile, Bauhauser was also in a very sticky situation. Sima Jinkai had appeared before him, but in contrast with before, both Sima Jinkai's dragon-slaying saber and battle armor had disappeared. Sealing light was not an easy task. He could seal away any element, but that required his battle armor domain and dragon-slaying saber to be completely fused with one another, thereby giving him a severe handicap, which was why he rarely ever used this ability in battle. However, the sacrifice was definitely worth it here as he was able to disable the opponent's soul fusion skill by sealing light. As for the loss of his battle armor and weapon, Sima Jinkai didn't even consider that to be an issue. After all, a light unicorn without light was like a tiger without fangs and claws. As such, he had immediately attacked Bauhauser as soon as Arahang unleashed his assault against Weisheisen. Sima Jinkai gave Bauhauser a wide smile before stepping forward and chopping down with his palm. Bauhauser instantly felt as if the world around him had completely dimmed, and he could hear the despairing cries of countless giant dragons. The power of that palm was simply too formidable, especially on a mental level. Back when Tang Wulian had first met Sima Jinkai, the latter had already mastered a saber soul. Furthermore, he was a divine weapon incarnate, so even without the dragon-slaying saber, he was able to use his own body as a saber. Bauhauser also plucked down his own horn and transformed it into a longsword before unleashing dozens of sword projections at once. But due to the fact that all light elements had been sealed, he was unable to use the vast majority of his soul skills, and even his battle armor had been severely debilitated. Even with his battle armor to enhance him, Bauhauser was still at a severe disadvantage due to the complete absence of light elements. Sima Jinkai strode forward as he unleashed another palm strike, and on this occasion, Bauhauser felt as if a giant dragon had suddenly appeared before him. This was a dragon that was entirely deathly grey in color, and it was sliced in half amid a blood-curdling howl. Ugh. Bauhauser couldn't help but let loose a sharp scream. Meanwhile, Weisheisen also let loose an involuntary scream as his battle armor was compressed from all sides by Arahang. What the FCK? Arahang immediately released his opponent and hurtled back in retreat as if he had seen a ghost. At the same time, Sima Jinkai's right palm had already reached Bauhauser's neck, and he was millimeters away from knocking his opponent unconscious with a swift chop to the neck. However, he also rushed back in retreat as if his hand had suddenly been burned. Why had they displayed such strong reactions? It was because the screams of their opponents were female screams of an extremely high decibel. It wouldn't even be an exaggeration to compare them with banshee screeches. Sima Jinkai and Arahang exchanged a glance, and both of them could see their own incredulity mirrored in one another's eyes. Right at this moment, the sky suddenly trembled, following which a beam of light shone down onto Sima Jinkai from above. It was none other than his battle armor. Immediately thereafter, his dragon-slaying saber also returned. Crap. Sima Jinkai yelled, "We have to take them down now." However, it was already too late. The seal on light elements had suddenly disappeared, and Weisheisen almost instinctively teleported himself over to his brother before the two of them instantly fused as one. The giant ball of golden light appeared once again, and it crashed into Arahang's body with scorching fury. This attack was far more fearsome than the previous one had been as both of the Bai brothers had donned their battle armor, and their powers were also fueled by their fury. Arahang let loose an anguished howl as he was instantly sent flying for over a kilometer. In the next instant, 5 more balls of light were conjured up, and all 6 balls of golden light surrounded Sima Jinkai before bombarding him one after another. Sima Jinkai resisted with all his might as he wielded his dragon-slaying saber, but he could only stumble back in retreat. All of a sudden, the 6 balls of light combined as one, creating a string of explosions comparable to the power of a ninth-grade soul missile, and the entire sky was illuminated by scintillating golden light. A figure fell out of the sky, crashing down toward the ground like a rucksack. Tang Wulian immediately rushed forward to catch Sima Jinkai, who had blood flowing out of all 7 of his orifices. Furthermore, his 3-word battle armor was in tatters, highlighting just how fearsome the attack he had just withstood had been. Sima Jinkai cast an indignant gaze toward Tang Wulian and barely choked out the words "their women" before falling unconscious. Yali had already unleashed her holy light technique, while another despairing howl rang out up above. "I surrender. I don't fight women. Ugh." Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.